Hey everyone, Tech Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. On this video, we're going to do something on this TV right here. This is the Sony Bravia 8 second generation 65-inch, and I just got through calibrating it, and I want to give you my best picture settings. A few things to realize here is that this is a 65-inch. It's the QD-OLED model, and if you have a 55-inch, these settings may work, but I can't guarantee you're going to get the best settings. Plus, when you do calibration, it should be done on your TVs because every one that comes out of the factory is not perfect, exactly matching each other. You can use this video as a foundation to play around some color settings, but with that being said, Sony's are pretty accurate out of the box. This is something that you may or may not need. With that being said, let's start off with SDR settings, and you can see a before and after. Let's get into it. Before I get started, I just want to put this out there that since you're not going to have the custom pro settings, you need to choose one of these other picture profiles that you don't use a lot. But keep in mind, photo will not have the motion settings, so I would choose just one of these other ones that you don't use on a daily basis. Before I show you the SDR settings, I want to show you what this TV looks like in cinema mode, and I'll show you a couple other picture profiles as well. Here's the professional mode, and it's a lot darker, but it still has really great colors. This TV looks amazing. Here's the IMAX enhanced mode, and again, it looks great. Brings in a little bit more shadow details, and overall, it's a really good picture. Here's a look at the calibrated settings. Again, this is more accurate than the other presets according to the software, but in my opinion, a lot of people might want the TV to be a little bit brighter. I did set this up for 120 lumens, but you can definitely increase the brightness if you like. So here's the picture mode. Now I have the brightness at 40, and again, you can increase this if you think it's too dark. As far as contrast, it's at 90. The gamma SDR is at -2. Black levels at 50. I do have the black adjustments off, but again, I always show you these different settings when you turn it back on. Didn't make too much difference. Here's the contrast enhancer, and here's the peak lumens. As you can see here, it's turned off from the software, but if you want the TV to be brighter, I would definitely use this adjustment to increase the brightness of the TV instead of the brightness. The software didn't make any adjustments to the color or the hue in these particular settings, but we want to go down to where it shows the advanced color adjustments. There's no adjustments to be made in your basic. Let's go over to the 20 points. So here's what it is. If you go to the color gamma adjustments, you're looking at 1, the red offset at -8, the green offset at -14, and the blue offset at -14. Now we're going to go to pair color adjustments, and we'll go through the different colors. So as far as red, nothing was changed except for lightness is at 3. Magenta, we have the hue at 4, saturation at -1, lightness at 3. As far as blue, we're looking at 3 for hue, saturation 1, lightness at 2. As far as cyan, hue at 4, saturation at 0, lightness at 8. As far as the green, we have the hue at 4, saturation at -4, lightness at 2, and the final one is yellow. We have the hue at 1, saturation at -2, and lightness at 4. Like I always say, you can go down to the bottom and reset this if you don't like it. That's my standard dynamic range settings for this television. Next, let's talk about HDR, but there's a little caveat. There's a few things I want to let you know before you can put in the HDR settings. First of all, you need to pull up something like a YouTube video or Disney Plus video, anything that has HDR in it. And as you can see over in the corner, it does show HDR. You also need to choose one of these picture profiles that you don't plan on using to put in these settings. Now, I don't recommend photo, but I would tell you that any of these other settings will work just fine if you're not planning on using it. Now, since I'm using calibration software, it did create a custom for Pro 1. And if you like, you can try to download the Sony Bravia Calman application to see if it'll give you this option. But just to be honest, I didn't test it. Once you do that and choose the picture profile you want, you can then start entering the settings that I'm about to show you. Here's the TV in cinema mode, and I can say that right out of the box, this TV has a fantastic picture quality. The cinema mode is definitely something that you want to use, but let's switch it over to a couple other formats. And here's the professional mode, and I would say that it makes the TV a lot more darker. It looks more flatter. You don't have as much saturation, but still overall, it's a great picture. And this is what it looks like in IMAX Enhanced, still a great picture. I can't really tell that big a difference between this one and professional mode, but I would say that if you have the IMAX metadata going to this television, that it's going to look great on any of these picture profiles. Here's what the picture looks like calibrated, and all these different formats are very similar, as you can see right here. So it really comes down to if you want a calibrated setting or just use what it comes in the box. I think you'll be fine either way. If you decide to use these calibration settings, I'll go ahead and give it to you. Now keep in mind, when I set it up, it does create this custom Pro 1. And some people say you can download the Sony Bravia application to get this setting, but I haven't tried it out yet. And keep in mind, some of these options can be adjusted. First of all, when it comes to HDR brightness, you can kind of adjust it there, but you can see it doesn't make a huge difference. And when I was calibrating it, it basically asked me to set it up, and I set it up at 120 lumens. As far as HDR contrast, you're going to go to 90, the HDR gamma 0, and you want to put it on preferred HDR tone mapping. Black level is going to be 50. You do have black adjustments. I'll show you what it looks like if you just kind of play around with that. Again, it's not going to make that big of a change. And then you have contrast enhancer that brings out a little bit more highlights in the picture. So that'll be your option if you want to turn that back on. As far as peak lumens, we have it at high, but you can go to medium, low. You can see it gets really dark. Let's just leave it on high. And then we have colors. Now, a lot of these options do not change in the television when you calibrate it, but what we're going to look for is the advanced color adjustments. Under basic, you're not going to see many changes there, but we're going to go to the 20 points. That's where the changes were made. As far as the color gamut adjustment, we're looking at level 1, the red offset at -11, the green offset at -10, and the blue offset at -10. If we go down to the per color adjustments, there's going to be a lot of different colors in here. So starting off with red, we have the hue at 1, saturation at -8, the lightness at 7. When we move over to magenta, you're looking at 4, saturation -8, the lightness at 6. When we go over to blue, you're looking at hue at 1, saturation at -7, lightness at 3. And far as cyan, we have the hue at -1, the saturation at -8, and the lightness at 7. Under green, we have the hue at 3, saturation at -11, lightness at 5. And under yellow, we have the hue at 2, the saturation at -8, and the lightness at 5. If you decide to make these changes and you don't like it, you can go down here to the bottom and hit reset, and that's on any of these profiles. One thing I do want to point out when it comes to clarity and motion, these are not part of the calibration software, so you can adjust those any way that you like. And for video signal, I have it at BT 2020, which is a HDR color signal, and the HDR mode is on HDR 10. So those are some of the best settings that you can use. And just so you know, when you calibrate television, it could take between 2 to 6 hours to calibrate each TV. The great thing is Sony supports this application called Calman for Bravia, and this allows you to use the software to automatically calibrate the television. And when I was calibrating SDR, I just want to show you kind of like some before and after shots so you can see the differences. If you notice, the RGB balance is spot on after the calibration. So these are the settings that I used on the television to show you. And another thing I want to show you is the before and after when I was calibrating the TV in HDR settings, so you can see the difference between the results of the two. That's all I have on this video, and if you have any questions or if you have settings that can trump what I just showed you, be sure to post all that in the comments below. Thanks all for watching. I'm Tech Steve, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.